Greetings, friends. You are watching the Ruslan Belov channel. Today we will take a detailed look at the overall global situation as of January 10th, 2026. Over the past 24 hours, a truly large number of significant and high-impact events have occurred. So without unnecessary introductions, let us move straight to the overview. As of today, more and more clarifying information is emerging regarding the Oreshnik strike on the city of Lviv and the Lviv region. Let me remind you that the day before, a number of media outlets, as well as ourselves in previous briefings, discussed the version according to which the main target of the strike may have been gas infrastructure facilities, specifically a gas storage site or a gas distribution station in the area of the town of Strai. At that time, most analysts leaned toward this interpretation, since almost immediately after the strike, reports began to emerge about large-scale disruptions to gas supply across the entire Lviv region. However, today these assumptions have been, albeit indirectly, effectively refuted. A number of OSINT researchers engaged in detailed strike analysis and the identification of coordinates and impact points were able to determine that, with a high degree of probability, the strikes were not carried out against gas infrastructure and not against the Strai area. The main impact zone appears to have been located in the vicinity of Lviv International Airport. It is precisely in this area that the key strikes were recorded. In addition, information is emerging that one of the targets may have been the Lviv aircraft repair plant. A version is not being ruled out, according to which Western F-16 fighter jets could have been present on the territory of this facility at the moment of the strike. However, at this stage, this remains nothing more than speculation and analytical assumptions that have not been confirmed by official sources. Nevertheless, it can be stated with a fairly high degree of confidence that the strike had a clearly military character and was directed specifically against military infrastructure facilities rather than civilian energy infrastructure. If we turn to the situation in the energy sector, the picture here is the opposite. The situation continues to deteriorate. An increasing number of alarming reports are coming today from Kiev. A significant portion of residential buildings in the capital remains without electricity, without water supply, without hot water, and without heating. According to sources and statements by local authorities, in some districts of Kiev, people have been without electricity and water for more than 40 consecutive hours. Attempts are being made to stabilize the situation, but the information environment remains extremely contradictory. Some sources claim that normalization is expected in the near future, while others directly state that restoration efforts may drag on for an indefinite period. Kyiv Mayor Vitaly Klitschko has already publicly addressed the residents of the capital, urging them to temporarily leave the city during this cold period and, if possible, relocate to places where access to water and electricity is available, or where alternative power sources can be used. At the same time, over the past 24 hours, the Russian Federation has carried out intensive strikes, primarily against targets in the Dnipropetrovsk region. Let me remind you that the day before the use of the Oreshnik system, massive strikes were also directed at this region, and several days ago signs of a large-scale blackout were already recorded there. This was followed by a certain operational pause, after which the strikes shifted toward the Kiev region, and an Oreshnik strike was also carried out against the Lviv region. If we trace the overall logic of the strike routes, the picture appears as follows. On January 7th-8, the main activity was focused on the Dnipropetrovsk region. Afterward, the strikes shifted toward the Kiev and Lviv regions, and closer to January 10th, the Russian army once again refocused its efforts on the Dnipropetrovsk region. At present, strikes there are again being carried out against energy infrastructure facilities. Video footage is circulating online, which according to the authors was recorded in the area of the city of Kryvyi Rih. We observe numerous explosions, as well as characteristic bright bluish flashes, which typically indicate strikes against energy facilities. In addition, a photograph is being circulated today from the area of the Kryvyi Rih power plant, where a large fire has been recorded. According to preliminary data, the power plant located near the settlement of Zelenodolsk has sustained serious damage. Video materials are also continuing to emerge from the city of Dnipro itself and other areas of the Dnipropetrovsk region. The footage shows explosions and a complete absence of power supply. Overall, it can be stated that the situation in this region currently appears significantly more severe and critical than the situation observed in Kiev and the Kiev region. Now let us move directly to the line of contact. We will begin with the Zaporizhzhia sector of the front, where the Russian army is gradually increasing the tempo of its offensive operations. Activity in this direction has once again intensified noticeably. At present, the Russian side is focused on the task of advancing from the Haichur River toward the railway line that runs from Huliaipole through the settlement of Zaliznichny and then stretches northward toward Ternovate and neighboring settlements. Apparently, the formation of a stable bridgehead between the Haichur River and this railway line constitutes the key task of the Vostok troop grouping. An analysis of current cartographic updates and control zones indicates that this task has already been completed by Russian units by at least 50%. Today, information is emerging that Russian forces have moved beyond the boundaries of the settlement of Huliaipole and are continuing their advance towards Starokranka, Zaliznichne and adjacent areas. New adjustments are visible on the map, whereas just yesterday, on January 9th, reports spoke only of improved positions in the area of the settlement of Zelin. Today the line of control has shifted further west. In addition, information has appeared today indicating that Russian units have managed to encircle a Ukrainian armed forces garrison located in the settlement of Sviato-Petrivka. For now, this data is being disseminated mainly by pro-Russian cartographic resources and lacks official confirmation. It is possible that the Ministry of Defense will provide clarification on this matter in the coming days. An active expansion of the control zone around Huliaipole itself is also noted. At present, Russian units are focused on clearing the so-called pocket, located between Huliaipole and the settlement of Dorozhnyanka. This area is saturated with forest belts through which logistics routes may pass. Therefore, active work is underway to advance in this sector and to form an encirclement of the settlement of Zaliznichny from several directions at once. From the south, southwest, southeast, east, and, most likely in the near future, from the northeast. Settlements in this direction are regularly being struck using aviation and unmanned aerial vehicles. It is worth emphasizing one important feature of this sector of the front. At present, there is no snow cover in the Zaporizhzhia direction. This is clearly visible in the video materials coming from the area. It is likely that the absence of snow is allowing Russian units to maintain relatively high offensive tempos. Next, we move to the Dnipropetrovsk direction, from where a large amount of significant information is also coming today. Pro-Russian analysts and cartographers have introduced adjustments in the area of the settlement of Novopavlivka. According to updated data, Russian units have managed to reach the western outskirts of this settlement. At present, the situation appears as follows. Approximately 40% of Novopavlivka is under the control of Russian forces, around 30% falls within a grey zone, and roughly another 30% remains under the control of the Ukrainian armed forces. The offensive in this sector is characterized by high dynamics. The combat map has been actively changing over the past several days, and the pace of advance continues to increase. In addition, information has emerged today about a minor but important advance by Russian units north of Udakhny and Molodetska in the direction of settlements such as Serhivka and Novoalexandrivka. Overall, the outlines of a potential future offensive, possibly a spring one, are already beginning to take shape, with the main objective potentially being the area of the settlement of Mezhova. This territory appears to be considered a priority task for certain units of the Russian armed forces ahead of the 2026 summer military campaign. Mezhova has significant strategic importance. Many settlements are concentrated here, and most importantly, a railway line passes through the area, linking Mezhova, Udakhne and Pokrovsk with the southern direction towards Selidov, Avdiivka, Osheretine and Donetsk. Thus, the Russian army continues its advance along railway infrastructure. A logical yet rhetorical question arises. Will railway communication with Pokrovsk be restored within the next 6 to 12 months? As Russian units continue advancing north and northwest, the likelihood of restoring railway connections with Pokrovsk and Mirnohrad increases significantly. This, in turn, could fundamentally affect both the course of the summer and, possibly, the autumn military campaign of 2026. Despite the advance of Russian units on the Zaporizhzhia sector of the front and the possible expansion of combat operations in the Dnipropetrovsk direction, the most significant and high-impact developments over the past day are undoubtedly associated with the Kostiantynivka sector of the front. It is from this area that the largest number of updates and adjustments are coming today. Just yesterday, on January 9, 2026, the front line in this direction looked completely different. However, today's changes on the map make it possible to conclude that the Russian army has entered the phase of a general offensive toward the city of Kostiantynivka. The apparent objective of these actions is to enter the city itself, followed by pressure on Ukrainian formations and their displacement further north, toward Oleksivka, Druzhkivka, and nearby settlements. According to incoming updates, Russian units have managed to significantly improve their positions in the area of the settlement of Ilinka. The consolidation of Russian forces in the settlement of Berostok has also been confirmed. Advances have been noted in the area of the railway station, as well as the fact that Russian units have entered the territory of the settlement of Novodmitrivka. These are the changes that can currently be considered obvious and visually confirmable. In addition, information is actively circulating today, confirmed by both pro-Ukrainian and pro-Russian sources, that the Russian army is conducting active offensive operations over a broader area as well. In particular, this concerns the areas of the settlements of Novomarkov, Markove, Maiske, Verolyubivka, and Popasne. Thus, high-intensity combat operations are now also unfolding on the so-called Kramatorsk sector of the front. The likely objective of these maneuvers is an attempt to reach the rear of the Ukrainian grouping concentrated in the Kostiantynivka area, as well as in the areas of Oleksiyivka and Druzhkivka. In practical terms, this involves Russian units seeking to move as close as possible to the key logistical arteries leading toward Kostiantynivka and to establish full physical control over them. If we speak about logistics in general, a certain level of control is already present. It may not yet be as dense or comprehensive as it could become in the event of a direct approach to these highways. But even the current level of impact can already be described as quite serious and tangible. In the published video footage, we observe a series of FPV drone strikes against equipment of the Ukrainian armed forces moving toward Kostiantynivka. These images allow for an important conclusion to be drawn. The mosquito nets and anti-drone nets that had previously been installed to protect logistical routes have now been almost completely destroyed. This may have occurred both due to adverse weather conditions and as a result of systematic drone activity. As a result, all protective netting installed prior to the start of active fighting for Kostiantynivka has effectively ceased to function and no longer provides either supply security or protection for equipment and personnel of the Ukrainian garrison. In this context, the Kostiantynivka direction is currently becoming a priority for the Russian army. The main task here is to straighten the front line and then advance toward the Kramatorsk direction from several sectors simultaneously, which could significantly alter the operational situation in the region. Next, let us move to the Lyman sector of the front, from where a number of important signals are also coming in. We continue to closely monitor the situation around the city of Lyman. Despite the current state of the settlement, over the past 24 hours, there has been almost no information regarding further advances directly within the urban area itself. Let me remind you that the day before, serious adjustments were recorded along the perimeter of Lyman, both from the southern side in the area of the T0514 highway and in the area of the northern farms. However, at the moment, we do not see this advance continuing deeper into the city. At the same time, extremely high dynamics are being observed in the far north of the Donetsk region. Several significant adjustments are being recorded in this sector at once. The Russian army is actively advancing, and there are reasons to believe that the map we are currently seeing, although it largely coincides with data from most cartographic services, may already fail to fully reflect the real situation on the ground. As recently as January 8th, the front line here looked different. By January 9th, according to geolocation data, Russian units had entered the territory of the settlement of Sviatohirsk. It is possible that these were not regular army units, but sabotage and reconnaissance groups. However, the very fact of a Russian presence in this area is already being confirmed. In addition, information arrived this evening from the area of the settlement of Yarova, specifically from its southeastern outskirts. Precise coordinates have not yet been established, but there is virtually no doubt that events are unfolding in this area. Signs of a localized collapse of the front line are already becoming visible here. Sviatohirsk, Yarova, Sosnove, all of these settlements appear in today's updates. Moreover, adjustments are also being made toward the settlement of Oleksandrivka. Video footage has also recorded Russian sabotage groups moving in this direction. Earlier, we also discussed information indicating that Russian saboteurs were spotted and documented in the area of Lozova. These groups reportedly penetrated the city and distributed leaflets urging local residents to leave the settlement, stating that the Russian army plans to launch a serious offensive there in the near future. Thus, despite relative calm and a limited number of adjustments directly around Lyman itself, the impression is forming that a localized but quite significant collapse of the front line has occurred in the Izium direction. All of the aforementioned settlements belong to the northern part of the Donetsk region and fall within the area of responsibility of the Izium sector. Apparently, serious problems have emerged here in terms of defense, possibly related to shortages of manpower or a loss of stability in defensive positions. This suggests that dynamics in this sector may increase significantly in the near future, potentially up to the settlement of Oskil and possibly even further. A defining feature of this area is the presence of a large forest massif, and when comparing the current situation with that of 2022, the difference becomes quite clear. In 2022, 2023 and 2024, forested areas were considered among the most difficult and problematic sections of the front for offensive operations by either side. However, the end of 2025 and the beginning of 2026 have shown that, under modern conditions, forest massifs may in fact become the most favorable environment for conducting offensive operations. If Russian units succeed in advancing along this direction, a theoretical opportunity emerges to reach the city of Izium, and, at the same time, to cut a key transportation artery, the M03 highway connecting Kharkiv with Sloviansk. This is one of the most important logistical routes in the region, used for supply and troop movements. Its physical severance could lead to consequences that are currently difficult to predict. As for the Kupiansk direction, no significant changes have been recorded there. Over the past 24 hours, no noteworthy news has emerged from this sector. A similar situation persists across other northern directions as well, whether the Vovchansk or Kharkiv sectors, as well as the Sumy direction. That concludes today's overview, dear friends. Thank you for your attention, and thank you for watching the channel. Do not forget to subscribe and leave your likes. All the best to you, and see you next time.